welcome back to another episode of The Male Perspective. I am your host, Lana Reid, and today is an amazing day, a phenomenal day. I get to sit down with one of the wonderful men of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. I have with me a man fondly known as Pastor G, Mr. John Girton. He is what we call a serial solopreneur, servant leader, and so much more. And I'm looking forward to spending some time with him today and learning more about the amazing work that he is doing. But first and foremost, sir, as I always do, I take a quick moment to pause and say thank you to you for making time for me today. Time is a gift. Once we give it, we can't get it back. So I truly appreciate you setting aside this time to talk with me. And with that, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here, and I thank you for the invitation.
Great. Well, as I mentioned in the opening, you are a Sigma man. Please tell me, where'd you pledge and how long have you been a Sigma?
Wow, I pledged spring 1988 at Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana, Lambda Beta Chapter, where I'm proud to say I worked not only undergrad as a member, but I also was the president for a couple of years. We did some very innovative and wonderful things, and that means I've been in the fraternity now for, if my math is correct, okay, let's just say over 30 years.
That way you want them old school pledges, though. Old school pledges on the yard, right?
Buddy.
All right. Well, let me get into some of the amazing stuff that you've got going on. And I want to start off. One of the things that I do when I prepare for these chats with you gentlemen is kind of roam around social media and see what you're up to. And I stumbled across one of the videos of you, and you were talking about something that reminded me of some conversations I tend to have with younger people when they have these big dreams about being an entrepreneur, and they're like, Miss Lana, I'm going to be famous in 2 months, and I'm having the Mercedes and everything. And I just kind of shake my head and smile and think to myself, ooh, do not despise the days of small beginnings.
Right.
And you have a story you were sharing in this video, and I was wondering if I could trouble you to share with us. You have a peanut butter cookie story.
Yeah, I do.
So we can understand how entrepreneurship really works, how it starts.
Well, even the peanut butter cookie story has some other tentacles to it. Obviously, there was a bug. I believe I didn't know what entrepreneurship was. I didn't know what solopreneurship was. I didn't know what business was all about. But I knew a little early on, I think, I don't know how old I was. Maybe I was 13 or younger than that, when I had made some cookies, and I had just made some cookies, and people liked them, and they kept asking me to make more. So I made more. I started selling them. And it's funny because my daughter is now selling cinnamon rolls or whatever, Cinnabon looking things. Oh. It just I kind of chuckled because it reminded me as she was had people coming into the house and pulling into the driveway, and she's making them, and we're carting them out the front door and all this. They're cash apping her and all that. It did remind me of when I was not yet a real full teenager, that I was doing I was really understanding true supply and demand that early. Now, the shift to really desiring to be in quote unquote business, if you will, started when someone stole my bike. My parents had just bought me this nice silver and gold Murray bike back in the day, and I rode it to school during the summer for summer school. And my sister and I hid our bikes behind this bush. We came out and the bikes were gone. So we're like, oh no, I just bought them. My parents just bought it, just got these. So I went back to my parents and basically was like, hey, somebody stole our bikes, or my bike at least. And so they looked at me and was like, hey, I don't know what to say. We only got one bike in us. So I don't know what you're going to do, but we're not buying you another bike. And so that started this other thing, which was, now I got to figure out how to raise the money to buy a bike. And so I think I got a paper route or something like that to raise the money. What I actually ended up doing was I ended up learning how to build a bike. So I didn't buy a bike, I built a bike. And then once I built the bike, other people liked the bikes I built and started asking me to build bikes for them. So then that started that piece. And then, so I got a little better at the whole concept of supply and demand. And then lastly, I wanted to DJ. A friend of mine and I decided we were going to be, crush grooving and all that back in the day. And we wanted to be Run DMC and all that. And now I'm showing my age. But in order to buy the equipment, again, I needed to raise the money. And so I started doing the DJ thing, which raised more money. And then ultimately, I learned how to write contracts, negotiate deals, purchase equipment, I had leases, things like that, transportation, moving stuff around, booking, all of those little details we learned when I started DJing at about 14 or so. And then I continued to do that even through college, and eventually stopped DJing. But I never, once I learned the word entrepreneurship, I started to understand what I was doing. I was like, oh, okay, that's what I'm doing. And I was like, okay, well, I want to do that. And boom, there it is. That was kind of the path I was on. So that's it.
And so now we're probably about 10, 15 businesses later.
Yeah, as you say, I'm a serial. I call myself a serial solopreneur because I am more of a solopreneur than an entrepreneur. Most people don't know the difference between the two, but I definitely do.
I've been in it.
Yeah, so yeah, my wife would tell you I can start a business in a hot second. I can sell sand in the desert. I can sell water in the ocean. I don't have any problem starting a business and getting something up and running because I'm a lifelong learner, number one. And I feel like as long as I have access to information, no matter what I want to do, ultimately I can figure out how to do it. And with the level and the degree and the pace of innovation, to be quite frank, if you are going to be in some type of business, I mean, there are ways you can start business and let other people do all the work. But at the end of the day, at the pace of innovation, you have to always be willing to learn. And I've loved learning so much that I could shift, no matter what the wind, no matter which way the wind is blowing, I can learn what it takes to kind of go with the flow and pick up and start doing things that's on the cutting, if not bleeding edge.
That's great. It's so important to learn how to pivot. And, some people just really get stuck and just really can't. I've been doing it this way but you're bumping your head against the wall. You don't see that, you're not going to make the shift. So it's very important to learn how to pivot. So
very much.
Let me switch gears a little bit because I got a short amount of time. And I want to discuss something because you are the go-to guy when it comes to media, and you're also a pastor. And we had a global situation a few years back called a pandemic. And I'm curious, because you are the media guy, in what ways did you notice the church was struggling when it came to transitioning to a virtual space?
Well, I don't know if you saw TLC, which is the Loving Church. TLC church I founded back in 2008, which was one of the first virtual churches in the country. Okay. I saw that I saw well before the pandemic that we were behind the 8 ball. Okay. I started doing virtual streaming, if you will, when it was postage stamp. They called it postage stamp streaming way back in the early 2000s when we had dial-up modems. So I was kind of on that page a long time ago. And to be quite frank, I've been screaming this to the body of Christ for almost a decade before the pandemic. Well, actually it was over a decade, because if I started in 2008, I've been researching it maybe 2 or 3 years prior to that. The pandemic hit 2020. So basically, what everyone was sort of grappling with, I'd already dealt with. So I saw it early. I'd been screaming. Matter of fact, I could tell you now, and I'm not going to mention names, but I went to the National Baptist Convention USA Incorporated, went to the president and said, look, this was back when I was pastoring. I was lead pastor of Christ Missionary Baptist Church here in Indianapolis, which was a historical church at the time. I was pastoring that church in maybe 2016. I was going to those conventions and I was pleading with them to allow me to help educate our clergy and their leadership on how to do this. And they would say yes, they would say, okay, that's great, sounds great, and nothing. And I'm just being honest. I'm not being facetious or anything. I'm just being honest. I'm just telling you. And so to some degree, when the pandemic hit, I understood what was going on because I saw it coming. I saw it coming 10 years prior to that. So yeah, I saw it well before it happened.
Great, great. You know, I think maybe personally some of the struggles with, especially in the Black church, we're traditionally used to the call and response kind of thing. So older pastors, the mentality was, if I don't have a crowd in front of me, how am I going to make this happen? You know, and how I'm going to make that adjust to virtual space. But you know, if you have the knack, you have the.
And honestly, that's part of the idiosyncrasies of the online ministry, which to me should be celebrated. Why? Because when you're in an online space, you're not concerned about the numbers of people. You're not concerned about who's screaming and hollering and who's falling out, speaking in tongues. You're not concerned about the Hammond B3 organ. You're not concerned about who comes down. You're doing what the Bible says. It says, some plant, others water, God gets the increase. We're not called to count. You know, we're called to drop the seed of the word and the truth. And what I like about virtual is that it removes all the distractions, it removes all the expectations, and allows you to just drop the word of God. If you are committed to that, then it doesn't matter whether you have one or you have 1,000. It doesn't matter if you're in front of a camera, if you're virtual, if you're in a church, you're in a sanctuary, or if you're standing on the side of the road. As long as you're able to be committed to dropping the word of God, the rest of it, let him handle it, right?
There you go. There you go.
So I'll get off of that soapbox right now.
There you go. No, good soapbox to be on, because, you know, we have lost our way when it comes to that.
Yeah.
So let me transition to one of the other things that you've got going on. You have so many hats, but I saw this as I was being nosy. One of the things that you lead up is Unite for Change. And I see last year you just recently had your 7th Urban Servant Leadership Conference. We actually haven't gotten back to the Urban Servant Leadership Unconference. Our last one was during the pandemic. We did the virtual one. And when I started working at Martin University, that put a lot of my Unite for Change things on ice. The magazine, we had the Forward magazine that was going. We had a radio show that was going. We had a podcast that was going. We had all that stuff going. And then I started at Martin University in August of 2020, and everything took a pause. So to be quite honest, the community is screaming and hollering at me now, like, Pastor G, what are you going to do? And part of that is because we're continuing to see the need for the urban servant leader to have and find the support that they need for the work that they do. You mentioned servant leadership. I'm all about servant leadership, but I also recognize that there's this thing called urban servant leadership. And urban servant leadership is totally different than servant leadership because, yes, you are leading by serving, but when you're an urban servant leader, you're leading by serving, and the people that you're serving are also spitting in your face at the same time. So it takes a lot to be a servant leader in an urban context, because the people typically look like you. Many times they're connected to you, or they're related to you, or contextually they're coming from the same environment. And it hurts a lot to be an urban servant leader because you're trying to help a community that you love and that you're committed to, but at the same time, that community is not necessarily loving you back. And the tank of an urban servant leader empties a lot quicker than the tank of a servant leader. Why? Because a servant leader will drive into a community, they'll serve, they'll get back in their car, and they'll drive back home. And they'll leave that community that they serve, where urban servant leader actually is serving in the community that they live in, they worship in, they work in, they serve in that same community. So you can't really leave it, you know? So anyway, that's the Urban Servant Leadership Conference. It's a pivotal conference. It, you know, when we do it, it is amazing what happens in that room. People's eyes open and they see things that they've never seen before because of the way we present what we call presenting issues in a community and how they are to be resolved or turned around. Okay. So do you plan on picking it back up for 2024? Can we cross our fingers for that?
I'm not sure if I can do it in 2024, but I literally have sponsors who are like, I'm ready to write you a check. So what is good? Ultimately for me right now, it's about the team, and I'm being told that the team is out there. I just need to ask. And so as soon as I ask and the team shows up, we're going to do it, whether that's 2024 or 2025, but I definitely have to make it happen.
What our grandmama say, closed mouth don't get fed. So we got to open up your mouth. And
He's so right.
it's all right. You mentioned real quick there that you were on staff. You're one of the people making the magic happen at Martin University. And just for clarification, because sometimes people don't understand the lingo, what's the difference between an HBCU and a PBI?
Well, it's very simple. HBCUs, the designation stopped at the signing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So any school that would be minority serving, predominantly African-American, that was founded before 1964 would be considered an HBCU. Any MSI, a minority serving institution that was founded after 1964, is considered a predominantly Black institution, as in Martin University, which was founded in 1977.
Okay. So we got about a decade there. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I got time for one more question before I gotta let you go, because you got things to do. You must making things happen. Homelessness is a north, south, east, west. It's a big problem here in the United States. And I see that you are the tent pastor. Did that parlay with that, or was that for another reason?
It was about homicides, and honestly, what drove me out there was that when I began to pastor in that community, I was called to preach and, attend a lot of funerals of young people. And in my spirit, I knew that something needed to happen. And I can't give you the whole story, but I knew that something needed to happen. And in my mind, I thought, well, in order to raise awareness, not just of the victims, but of the people who were left behind as the collateral damage of what just happened. Mm-hmm. The mothers, the fathers, the grandmamas, the grandfathers, the community people who were left behind to deal, the friends and the peers. And so I knew something needed to happen to really generate some attention on the survivors to support them. I thought in my little bitty brain, I thought that what needed to happen was we needed to shut the streets down and do a mock funeral and get a bunch of hearses going down the street and bring all the community out like a parade thing and
go big or go home.
Yeah, have a press release and get all the media out and all that. And I'll tell you what, the Lord said to me and I preach a sermon about this in a still small voice. The Lord said, no, I don't want you to ask anyone else to sacrifice anything to bring attention to this. Mm-hmm. The Lord said, you be the sacrifice. And I said, well, what does that look like? I'm having a conversation with the Lord like that. And a friend of mine had done something called a rooftop campaign in Chicago, on the south side of Chicago. Pastor Corey Brooks, he and I went to college together. And so I called up there and I said, what do y'all think it would be like if I did a tent campaign here in the city of Indianapolis? And so we had myself and about two others had conversations between Atlanta, Chicago, and Indianapolis. And we talked about what it would look like for me to sacrifice in that way, position myself in one of the most violent areas of the city in an effort to bring awareness and to also get closer to the community and find out what their needs really were. And out of all of that was born the tent campaign. I think that most people thought I was going to be there for a couple of days. But once they saw that after a week, I was still there. After 2 weeks, I was still there. After 3 weeks, I was still there. I think it became evident that, that I was serious. God was in it. I didn't really think about how dangerous it was until afterwards. But I had the true support, not only of my family, my immediate family, my mother, my father, but I also had the support of the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department, who flew over me every night. Had just all kind of support there that helped to make that thing happen. And I just want you to know, I'm not the same. No one that was involved in what we did is the same. The homicides dropped to zero while I was out there. So it was such an amazing, life-altering experience that none of us walked away the same. But you just don't walk out and do that That's not something you just do. God has to say, hey, I want you to do this. Otherwise, it is a dangerous thing. And even when people would come to me and say, wouldn't that a dangerous thing to do? I would tell them, say, hey, it may seem dangerous to you, but here's the truth. While I was out there, I had gang members coming to me saying, you ain't got to worry about nothing. We got your, ain't nobody gonna mess with you, because they got to come through us before they mess with you, And so that's what I think, that why people still call me Pastor G, is that I don't have a church anymore. Okay. I don't have people anymore. I have a community, and that community still loves on me, and they still call on me. I still do funerals for people that I don't know. I still go to the hospital, and I'm going to visit one person, and I hear a voice say, Pastor G, and I end up visiting someone else. I'm on the phone with someone in Dallas, Texas, a couple of days ago, while they watched their mother breathe their last breath. I'm on the phone with someone from Atlanta who has a son who has schizophrenia, and she just needs somebody to pray with her. So as I'm a community pastor, so I show up for people who don't have anybody. And that really was cemented when I did the tent campaign, and it helped people to see that every pastor is not just concerned about those who walk in the doors. We're also concerned about those who walk past the doors.
Awesome. You're in what we call a metropolitan city, and a lot of cities are struggling crime-wise now. Would you say Indianapolis is getting better, or because you mentioned the gun violence went to zero when you did the campaign? How are things currently in the urban areas in our communities there?
Well, we're probably not unlike many other cities, I'm sure. I spent a lot of time almost 20 years in Nashville, Tennessee, and it's a very similar city going through the same thing. Some, if you start splitting hairs, violent crime, shootings versus homicides are trending down. But at the end of the day, really, we're really dealing with the hard issue that's going on in our community and in our streets. And when you add the layer of the police action shootings, we're dealing with an increase of police action shootings where the police are pulling out guns and are resolving situations by pulling the trigger and killing whoever they're seeking to apprehend. Those numbers are up here in Indianapolis right now. So when you add the layer of those who are called to serve and protect also taking lives, you almost start to wonder, who can I trust? If I can't trust the kids in the community, the youth in the community, I can't trust those who are called to serve and protect. Like who are in the systemic issues and all that are going on. Can't trust. But bottom line, we're dealing with the dismantlement of the family, dismantlement of the housing structure. We're dealing with materialism. We're dealing with, the rise of hate against people and their cultures, and this whole, just a lot going on right now that's fighting against and undermining what we are trying to do in the community. And the church has to rise to the occasion to get back to the basics. And that is, Jesus said, you can't tell me you love me and you don't love your neighbor who you see every day. We've got to find a way to start loving each other. I found the most fruitful time that I would spend on a Sunday is when I got on the bike with my full suit on, and I rode that bike into an alley, and I asked those people, does anybody want to pray? And those folk would literally be running from across the street trying to line up and get into prayer with Pastor G on a Sunday morning. On that same Sunday, I'd leave that alley, ride my bike back to the church, stand in the pulpit, and I'd say, it's altar call time. It's altar time. Y'all come to the altar. And there'll be people literally still sitting in their seats. At the body of Christ need to figure it out. We've got to recognize that the streets are where they are because the church is where it is. It makes absolutely no sense that we got people who are not saved telling the church how to act. That don't make no sense. We've got to return to loving on one another and respecting one another and recognizing that I can love you even if I don't like you. There may be some things that you do that I don't like, but it doesn't mean that I don't love you. There's no zero-sum games in the body of Christ. There's no, if you don't give me what I want, then nobody's going to get anything. So I'm just going to leave, walk out and set up a church next door. You know what I'm saying? Come on, y'all.
Very, very much like a toddler. Very much like a toddler.
Yeah. it's immature, and we just need to focus in on number one, and that is to love one another as Christ loves us. So I don't know.
And he plainly lays it out there in the Bible. It's all there from cover to cover. It's just, but I'm hearing quite a few people in the ministry kind of say, just get back to the basics. So hopefully we can circle back there. One last question before I let you go. Well, before I ask my random question. Mr. Serial Solopreneur, what can we expect from Pastor G in 2024?
Wow. The company I currently own, which is called Girton Enterprises, when I get off work at Martin University, I tell people all the time, I get off work, come home, go back to work. So we're doing a tremendous number of virtual and hybrid events that my company, in addition to graphic design and marketing and things like that, website production that we do, we produce these events. So we've got in 3 weeks, Shannon Sharp will be here at Warren Central High School Performing Arts Center. So we're producing that event. We're producing Jackie Joyner-Kersee and Jackie Williams at the NCAA next month. And then in April, we have Deion Sanders at Lucas Oil Stadium for an event there that we'll be producing. We're producing an education event in Tinley on February the 24th. The Black Documentary Filmmakers Film Festival will be happening at Martin University. We're producing that on February 22nd. We've got the gala in April, Martin Commencement in May. We have I believe it's an Alzheimer's event that we'll be doing in the community in June. Breast cancer awareness in September, as we always do. Diversity Roundtable in October. We have the 90s weekend going on for Martin University Homecoming in October. So as you can imagine, there's a lot that we're going to be doing this year with regard to our events and activities. And that's just kind of what's there.
Okay.
There's more coming.
Okay, I'm expecting to see it. Well, let me ask you my random question, and let me let you get out of here because you got other things to do today. So let's see what we got here. Let's see what we got. Let's see. What's one item on your bucket list?
Like long-term bucket list or short-term bucket list?
What is your pick?
Okay, short-term bucket list. I need to take a vacation.
Well, that would make sense. That would make sense. Where would you go? Where would you go?
I think right now, sometimes I go to Las Vegas. I don't gamble or anything, and I don't drink. I don't do any of that. But sometimes I go to Las Vegas because I'm a watcher. I'm a people watcher.
Okay.
Sometimes I go there just to watch people move around, and God speaks to me when I'm watching people, So I could probably go, most of the time I go to Nashville, down to Cool Springs, which is south of Brentwood, Tennessee, to a little hotel. I go all the time. I go there all the time. Most of the time I do something like that, do a 4-day weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, then go back on Tuesday. But if somebody said, hey, I got you, where you want to go? I would probably go to a hotel in Las Vegas and just walk around, watching people, eating, chilling, resting, sleeping. I need about 5 days of just uninterrupted sleep, Do
you ever walk around without a camera, without a mic, without filming stuff, taking pictures?
Oh yeah, I'm older. I've been doing video since '84. So I'm tired of shooting video. So yeah, if I can get out without grab one of these cameras or whatnot, I would just be out walking around. Nobody would ever know.
Okay, well, we got to teach the next generation so they could come up and be Pastor G number 2.
I got them. They're upstairs. He's upstairs now. I got 2 of them here that are taking after me. They've been doing this since they was in diapers.
Okay.
And Faith my daughter is the executive administrator of her brothers. So yeah, I done raised up a little crew.
I ain't mad at you. I love to hear it. I love it. Well, sir, tell us, how we connect with you and check up on you and see all the amazing stuff you're doing. Give us websites and all of that stuff.
Man, I think my website expired or something, so I didn't even renew it because I don't. And to be quite frank, I don't really need any more business right now. So it's not a website now. I would just say connect with me on LinkedIn at John Girton. You can probably find me, John Girton or Pastor G, on LinkedIn. On Facebook, same thing, John Girton. I do have a business Facebook page at Girton Enterprises, GIRT Enterprises with an S. So I'm there. I have my Girt Speaks is there on Facebook as well. Girt Speaks, GIRT Speaks is there as well. So any of those is fine. I'm not really an Instagram kind of guy. I have an account, but I don't follow it that much. Yeah, you can find me in any of those. And once you find me, typically a person, you can always interact with me, send me messages. I respond the whole nine. That's the best way to connect with me.
Awesome. Well, sir, I appreciate your time today and your stories and everything. I wish you, and I don't have to tell you this, but just keep on doing what you're doing. And I'm just so in awe, just so impressed. Thank you so much for your time.
Praise God. No, thank you for the invitation. And I hope that there was something that was said today that might be a blessing to someone. And like I said, connect with me because I talk back. And they can pick up my book
it was easier for me to ask you how long you've been a Sigma. The title of you just wrote the book.
I did. I wrote the book. It's something like from passion to profit. The book is like Passion to Profit. That's my solopreneurship book. It's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Yep. And in that video, in that book, I go through all the steps that I take to help someone launch a business. And if you go to my Girt Speaks or you go to my Girt Enterprises, you'll also see a link to the website that is associated with the book, where I've got videos that I recorded on a lot of the tips about how to get your solopreneurship started. And I know you got to go, but I'm gonna throw this in here.
No, I'll stay.
I always say it like this. The reason why I focus on solopreneurship and not entrepreneurship is because I believe that there are so many people out there who will tell you that they're living from paycheck to paycheck, or they'll tell you, man, I'm trying to get into a better apartment, or I'm trying to get a job, to get a better car or something like that. And I'll say, well, what's holding you back? Well, I've got these high interest credit cards, or I've got a school loan, or I've got something from my past that, my credit is bad or whatever. And then I sit back and I go, well, look, here's the deal. Let's look at what it is you're attempting to do. If it's to pay off a high interest credit card, if it's to pay off that school loan, if it's to purchase a car with a larger down payment, whatever that thing, it might be to send your child to a private school, whatever that is. Let's look at how much it's going to cost you to achieve that goal. Mm-hmm. Now, once you understand what it costs you to achieve that goal, then let's just break that down and understand what would it take if that goal was $10,000, or let's do easy math, $12,000 to put down a down payment on a nice car so you don't have this big car payment, right? Take that $12,000. That's $1,000 a month for 12 months, mm-hmm. All right? That means you got to come up with $250 a week, all right, for 52 weeks. Look at that $250 and you divide that $250 by the amount of time you can make yourself available on the weekend. Maybe you can make yourself available 5 hours on Saturday, 5 hours on Sunday. You take that $250, now you're down to $25 an hour. So if you spend, if you spend 10 hours a weekend making $25 an hour, you can raise the money you need in 12 months to put down the down payment on that car. The next question is what are you passionate about that someone would be willing to pay you $25 an hour to do? That could be developing a website, that could be writing a book, that could be editing someone's copy, a copy that somebody has for letters, that could be virtual assistant, that could be cutting grass, that could be raking leaves, that could be shoveling snow, that could be, you see what I'm saying?
True entrepreneur, true.
Okay. And then people will say, well, Pastor G, well, how do I come up with what I'm passionate about? It's real simple. This is in my book. Find out what you lose track of time doing. And once you examine what you lose track of time doing, your gift is in there somewhere. Okay. So stop running from people who are trying to find you to tell you all their business. There might be a coach in there somewhere. If you feel
gotcha.
You feel me? So that's what solopreneurship for me isn't about just starting a business. It's about reaching a goal. And it's taking that goal and breaking it down into the pieces that you need to break it down into to make it easier for you to achieve whatever that goal is. You want to pay off that credit card. You want to get the down payment. You want a down payment for a house. You want to, send your child to private school. You want your child to go to school scot-free. They don't want no debt. These are the kind of things you can do and the way you can achieve it through a solopreneurship endeavor. You don't involve nobody else. It's just you getting it done. And then that commitment that you have makes it easier for you to cut that grass because you know why you're doing it. You're cutting that grass. You're going to send that child to that private school. That's why you're doing it. You get what I'm saying? So I just want to put it in.
No. Good. And so circling back to your book, do you provide coaching for people on top of that?
The only thing I'll do, I don't provide individual coaching because of my schedule, but what I will do is I will come and speak. So I will do some people call it group coaching, where you get a room full of people and you go through all of these things, the presentation, and ask, Q&A and all that. I'll do it for a group all day long, but individually. And of course, people do call me and ask me questions, and I'll answer questions, but I don't do it in a coaching format where I'm actually, formalizing that thing and it's just because of my schedule. At the university, I am the executive vice president and chief of staff. So my responsibilities at the university are fairly deep. And so when you get done doing that, come home and start doing my other thing. All I can really do is respond to questions on Facebook, questions on LinkedIn. And if somebody asks me to come speak somewhere, I'll come do that. And I'm always available to do those kinds of things.
I bet you the wife is sitting in the background like, "Oh, I don't have to hear this man come up and say he done started another business."
I'm done. I'm toast.
All right. So once again, thank you so much for your time and your tips. I just truly appreciate it, and I'm pretty sure there is just tons of gems of knowledge in the interview. So thank you so much for your time.
Bless you. No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. That is all for this week's episode of The Male Perspective. I'm your host, Lana Reid, and I will see everybody next time.